As I was walking out of the theater, I was thinking, Underwater's probably the laziest movie name I'll probably hear all year. And granted, I can't really think of a better one off the top of my head, but Underwater's a pretty lazy movie name. So Underwater is about a group of scientists down in the Mariana Trench, and when their hub explodes, they work together to survive and fend off whatever is threatening their lives. This was one of the very first trailers that we got for a 2020 release, and I was really underwhelmed by it because it looked just like an Alien ripoff, and if you know me, I'm a huge advocate for creativity in film, and when these movies that are like ripoffs of like Die Hard and Alien come around, I really hope that they do something different that'll change something or make it interesting or creative or unique. And besides this thing taking place underwater, there's just not a whole lot that separates itself or makes it unique. Now, there are some things that I think this movie does really well, particularly in establishing an environment and creating this claustrophobia that this movie kind of slams you in. I think all the technical aspects do a really great job at supporting this atmosphere that this movie is creating. I think it's pretty well shot. There is a lot of shaky cam, but it adds a lot to the environment. It helps create that claustrophobia that you are supposed to feel when you're watching this movie. So I have to give it props for that. I think the sound design is also really spectacular. It does a really great job at immersing you into this atmosphere that the movie's creating. Now, with the underwater setting, with how it's shot and the fast editing and the shaky cam, it makes it really hard to see a lot of the events that are going on. It really makes it hard to follow what's happening. There's not a whole lot of spatial awareness going on. And that really detracted me from the experience because I was picking up on the atmosphere. I really liked the claustrophobia that the movie was throwing me in, but it really lost it whenever things were happening and things were going super quick and I just wasn't able to follow anything. It just kind of took that away. And I think once you move past all the technical aspects and the environment, there's just not a whole lot in this movie. For one, there's no depth to any of the characters. There's no development or anything like that. There's nothing that really ties you to the characters and what's happening. You don't feel any of the emotion. You don't feel any of the stakes. You're just kind of watching events happen. And I think if there was more depth to the characters, if there was more that enticed me to this story and what was happening to these characters, I would care a lot more about this story, and I think I would enjoy it a lot more. But they do nothing to add any sort of depth whatsoever to these characters. They talk a little bit about their past, but they don't really relate to it in an important way to the story and what's going on. It just feels really empty besides what's actually going on. Secondly, the dialogue just doesn't work at all. The jokes fall completely flat, and you can tell that it was a lot more of an events-based story, and they just threw the dialogue in just to have some dialogue in passing. It just feels unnatural and forced and awkward, and which is a big trend with a lot of these mindless horror thrillers. But it's still a problem because there's no reason why anybody's saying what they're saying. Especially stuff like, hey, we have to keep moving. Like, you don't have to say that. That's kind of obvious. If you're trying to run away from something, you don't have to say 2 or 3 times in a movie, hey, we got to keep moving. Because you're already running away from the object. There's no point in putting that in there. You don't have to have dialogue to create an interesting horror thriller. Watch A Quiet Place and you will find that out right from the get-go. You do not need to have that dialogue to tell an interesting story. Of course, we could talk for days about how A Quiet Place is better than this one, where it has character motives and, you know, interesting stakes, but that's besides the point. By the way, this movie goes completely off the rails around the end of the movie, and up until that point, it feels kind of natural. It feels like a pretty standard series of events, but it just escalates so fast, and it just goes bananas, and it just feels really unbelievable. There's nothing about that where you're interested or you really care at that point. It just feels dumb, really. And on top of that, like I mentioned, just the familiarity of the story, the fact that it does feel very similar to Alien and other space survival movies like that, it just really detracts from the experience because there isn't a whole lot creatively that's going on that's making itself unique from all those other films. And it just feels like a worse version of those movies. At the end of the day, Underwater was just a really mindless, dumb horror thriller, and sometimes you need those, but I just don't think this one was that good, and I don't think I can see myself ever going back to watch it again. And I would say Underwater gets a Jim Halpert face. I think if you're wanting to watch a mindless horror thriller with a bunch of friends, just to watch it and to have some fun, I guess this would do fine. I would advise against it. I would advise you strongly go see 1917 instead, which I saw this instead of that for some reason. I'm an idiot, aren't I? Anyways, if you like this review, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. You'll be one of the first ones to know when I upload a review, and as movies keep coming out, I'm going to keep doing more reviews, so be sure to be on the lookout for those coming soon. Also, be sure to follow me on social media. You can find those links down in the description below, including my letterbox where I log every single movie I watch and write a review for it, whether it's a new release, an old classic that I haven't seen, or a movie that I'm watching for the 100th time like The Room. I have them all there. I write sometimes joke reviews. I write like serious reviews, kind of like I did for Underwater. It's just a mix of fun. I also have ranked lists on there, and I would highly recommend you go check out the app. I'm not sponsored in any way, but if you love movies and you watch a lot of movies, I think it's a really cool service. So check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching this. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.